Hi everyone, and welcome to the fourth tutorial, the How to Use SketchUp by Mr. Pearce. Today we're going to be talking about components. Now you may find when you're new to SketchUp some bad things can happen, some very odd things can happen. A lot of this happens during moving stuff. So for example, you might have seen me in number 2, I made us a cube and a cylinder. Let's say I want to start trying to move things around. I use my move tool, like you might have seen in the third one, and I try and move the cube by grabbing the shape, and this kind of stuff happens because I've just grabbed an endpoint. Sad times. Also, if you grab a face and try and move that, odd stuff can happen. Now you might want to do it by changing the shape like that, but it's pretty unlikely if you're a beginner. So I talked about how you could triple click to move it to solve that problem. But let's say I then try and put it on my cylinder. It's all a bit slapdash, it's all going a bit wrong. So you can see that's on there. Now let's say I want to try and move my cube off the cylinder. I'm doing this. Oh, let me do that. Happy days. Now stuff like this can happen where now I've actually got my cube and my cylinder are actually joined, and then really bad stuff can happen, really weird odd stuff can happen because they don't, SketchUp doesn't realise the cube and the cylinder are meant to be separate, okay, because we've joined it on this edge, and that is going to cause us a lot of grief. So just again, it doesn't realise that the two are separate, and some really weird stuff can happen. So let's get into something called components now, and this is going to change your life. Big tip, and I really think this is the thing that helped me improve my SketchUp skills more than anything. Let's say I want this bit to be made of wood in my design, I want this bit to be made of metal. So these are two separate parts to the product, two separate bits. I would make them separately and put them together. Any bit that is separate from each other, we're going to turn it into what's called a component, and that's where we tell SketchUp this is a thing, this is a final bit of the product. And the way to do it is using our triple click method from before, or indeed drawing a box. As soon as you've got the whole shape selected, which is where it all goes blue, we're now going to right click, make component. I then could call it box. Right. Now every time I now click on it, you can see the whole thing goes blue. Now if I then do the cylinder as well, so the whole thing's gone blue, I've selected it, I've triple clicked it, right click, make component, call it cylinder. A component has what's called a bounding box around it, so it's a box that the thing fits into perfectly. You happy with that? That makes sense. Now why that is cool is every time I select it, it selects the component as a whole. Now before, when I just touched on this corner, it would have dragged it and made it go all weird. Now it doesn't. Okay, so the component is finished in the mind of Google SketchUp, and I can't change it unless I edit it, which we'll talk about in a second. Now let's say I wanted to then put it on my cylinder like I did before. Now when I then try to move it around, before it would have gone all kinds of crazy, now it doesn't, and that is super handy to know. So let's say I wanted to get this on there perfectly. Right, that's on there perfectly. Uh-oh. Yep, that's on there. Right, so that is very handy to know. Okay, components do have other benefits that we'll look at later in another one of the tutorials. Right, let's say I now decide I actually want to make my cube, my cylinder, sorry, a little bit shorter, for want of a better thing. Now at the moment, if I were to try and pull it, it won't let me do it. Can you see the little red circle with the cross through it saying I can't do it? What I need to do is I need to edit that component. So I need to tell the computer, look, I want to change this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select it, I'm going to right click again, and now I'm going to edit that component. Now the screen kind of changes, it greys out all the stuff. You can't do anything up here, you're only working on your cylinder. So now I do the push pull and you can see the face has go all blue dotty again, and now I can move it. Happy days. Okay, that looks good to me. Just type in 100, so I've half the size, super duper. And now it's still a component, so I can still move it around as I want it to, and that is looking good. There's another way to do it, to edit the component. Rather than having to right click, what you can do, if you just double click it, can you see it goes from component, double click, and now it's in that edit mode as well. Sweet! Alright, editing components and components is the way forward. So I would recommend to you, every time you draw an extra bit to your design, whatever it might be, make it a component, and that will solve a lot of problems and avoid a lot of grief. Alright, thanks very much.